The world is changing rapidly. More quickly than any time in history. But ironically, it is history which will guide Australia and China through the challenges to 2030 and beyond. Which is why our guests on this show are must-see and must-hear. They have uniquely different stories, but their shared history is all about building a better future. Each of them brilliant in their field. The architect, changing the way we live. The futurist, predicting the way we'll be. And the interpretive genius, soothing tensions and bringing harmony. Hello, I'm Rob McKnight and welcome to China, Australia Beyond 2030. Our first guest is one of the most interesting people you'll ever meet. She is a great example in this modern world of how the digital age can transform lives and careers. Now, when we asked Lisa Tay to describe herself, this is what she wrote.
I work with one of the co-founders of Netflix. I competed in a milkshake sculling contest and lost badly. I ran for Deputy Lord Mayor of Melbourne in 2020 despite knowing nothing about politics. I run 2 digital marketing companies, Cody Agency and Mooning. I founded the world's sexiest toothpaste company, 101 Lifestyle. I've written 2 best-selling books, Australian Style and Australian Beauty. I was named in the 2021 40 Under 40 Most Influential Asian Australians, and I was named a LinkedIn Top Voice in 2022 for my content on digital marketing and Web3.
And there's something else you need to know about Lisa Tay. She's on a mission to make Melbourne the startup capital of the world. And with her knowledge of AI and Web3, we think there's no stopping her. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob.
How did someone who was so ingrained in the Australian tax office, you were there 7 years.
I'm a bit embarrassed to admit it, but I did start my career in tax, and it was an interesting journey.
Why did you do the jump and get to where you are now?
To be honest, I ended up in tax because I had a really great uni lecturer who made tax seem interesting. And no offence.
Interesting lecturer.
I know. No offence to any tax lecturers out there, or tax people out there, but it really wasn't for me. I wasn't jumping out of bed in the morning. I wasn't excited to get to work every day and, stay past 5. I was really just sort of counting down towards the end of the day. So I just thought, you know what, that's no way to live my life. So along the way, I discovered social media and...
a bit more sexier than the tax office, wouldn't you say?
Just a little bit. But it was amazing because it was so new and it really opened my eyes to the ability to share content at scale and consume content at scale. And, I was pretty much there at the dawn of Facebook, so I'm kind of dating myself a bit there, but I remember jumping on, creating a profile, and then when Instagram launched, I remember sharing content. So for me, that actually got me excited. So that enabled me to do a bit of a career change. So I ended up working in marketing at Witchery, which is one of the big fashion companies in Australia. And then I started my first agency almost a decade ago now. So I've been in the game for a little while and I've just loved every single minute of it.
You have been named one of the 40 under 40 most influential Asian Australians. How does that come about with what you're doing and what does it mean for you?
Honestly, that was such an honour, and I really feel that, as an Asian Australian and even like a woman in business, like I have a responsibility to be out there and, having a face, because I really do believe you can't be what you can't see. I started my career at KPMG and, I worked at a big law firm, and I really felt like I wasn't seeing a lot of people that looked like me. And, even growing up in Australia, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me, even in the media. So I just thought, I've used social media to have a bit of a platform to share all my adventures and what I'm doing, successes, failures, ups and downs. I'm pretty unfiltered from that perspective, but I felt like a responsibility to be out there and actually show people that, if you're wanting to start your own business or you're wanting to, pursue a career in whatever you want to do, like you can do that. Like, I'm not anyone special, but I'm just someone who's out there trying to do their best every day and pursue their dreams.
But you went against the grain. Your parents weren't happy with some of your life choices, were they?
Sorry, Mum and Dad. They're probably like, you need degree wasted. But, I think for me, they've been super supportive. Like, I don't think they've always understood what I've wanted to do. Obviously, digital marketing's still quite a new industry. Social media is quite new. But, they just want me to be happy at the end of the day. So, I think when I eventually did the jump to my own, starting my own business, they're always like, are you okay? Like, can you eat? Do you have money for food and all that? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing well. I'm fine. But they've been amazing. And, for me, I feel like I inherited their work ethic. So they're just both incredible when it comes to just working hard. And I feel like as an entrepreneur, you just have to work your butt off 24/7. Like there's kind of no 9 to 5, so to speak. But I really enjoy it. And I feel like there's just nothing else that I'd rather be doing.
What's interesting about you is you are evolving. You talked about social media, but now you're moving into the new areas of AI and Web3. How are they changing the way people do business?
How long do we have? Because
we don't have that long. Headlines.
Well, I'll touch on like AI really quickly. Obviously you might have heard of ChatGPT, which is generative. It generates copy. But
how is that good for business? So there's there's a lot of people saying that AI isn't trustworthy and can get simple facts wrong. So how do businesses protect themselves from that?
That's a really good point. So I feel like it's not going to replace Google, so to speak. So I still feel like you need to fact check things. But the way that I see, ChatGPT and things that generate copy being useful is like when you have that blank page problem. So when you're just sitting down to do some work or start a pitch deck or write a social content plan, and you're just like, I don't even know where to start, you can put some prompts into AI like ChatGPT, and that will just start to spit out things for you. And you still might need to refine it, but it's a starting point. And, you ask about why businesses should be using it or why businesses should care. It's like you can be 20 times quicker doing work, 50 times quicker doing work. So automatically you start to see massive jumps in productivity. And AI isn't just a small, tiny step. It's like a leap. So if you want to be ahead of your competition, then you should be investigating AI for sure. Web3, that's like, traditionally people define Web3 as like, blockchain, crypto, that sort of space. I feel like now the term Web3, which is like the third, iteration of the internet, encapsulates, things like AI, VR, AR, but with blockchain technology, that's going to give businesses a really amazing way to start to record transactions, record ownership of property, because the way the blockchain works is that once something's recorded onto it, and think of it like a digital ledger, it's what we call immutable, i.e. it can't be changed. So with all the things that are going wrong with hacking, like imagine if you had this immutable database that can't be hacked, that you can store monetary transactions on, like crypto. Well, I'm not going to put a challenge out there. It's much more difficult to hack than a traditional database.
Yeah. And with that, does that mean Web3 will allow businesses to move away from their reliance on other businesses, banks and the like?
Very interesting point. I feel like banks are starting to move into utilising blockchain, but I feel like businesses eventually will start to explore the use of crypto, especially as it becomes regulated. Because think of it this way. So if I was an Australian company transferring money to you and you're located in the States, it can take 2 to 3 days for that transaction to hit my account, for example. Yes. But with crypto, it's pretty much instantaneous. So you're just taking away all those days in delay with transactions. So that's going to make companies potentially more profitable or more productive. So it's definitely going to change the game.
Well, Lisa, do not go anywhere because we are not done getting your insights yet. We will chat with you in just a moment. But our next guest knows all about the power of design. He's a man transforming lives by transforming suburban jungles into livable cities. Greg Gong is a director of one of the world's most prestigious architecture companies, responsible for the design of iconic buildings such as the Australian Embassy in Beijing and the Chinese consulate in Melbourne. From his high-rise Melbourne office, he's also designed 45,000 apartments in China. Born in Beijing, he did his masters in Shanghai before making Melbourne his home in 1991. He sees himself as a bridge between East and West. Greg Gong, welcome.
Hi.
You say you see yourself as a bridge between East and West. What does that mean?
Well, as I'm a Chinese and I come here, and between the two countries, there are so many connections and trade, and then the services as well. So architecture is a service. And I'm one of the best person because I know the language and have been trained there. So I can offer what Australians really need and what the Chinese needs as well. So I see myself as a bridge.
And you've certainly taken the Melbourne influence over to China, haven't you, with some of your designs?
Definitely, Australian design is quite different from Europe and American as well. So we offer some freshness to the country. So I'm so pleased we have the opportunity to bring that to China.
When you say Australia has a different design to other countries, in broad terms, what do you mean?
We are more free and we don't have burdens like Europe have the tradition, and American is heavily borrowed from tradition of European tradition. And Australia is a fresh country, so less burden and more free and more fresh, I would call it.
When we're talking about opportunities, which is what this episode is about, one of the cities that you're working in is Tianjin, which is Melbourne's sister city. Is it those kind of relationships that are helping you get work over there?
Yes, one of the very first projects we worked on is in Tianjin, and definitely the sister cities helps us a lot. And I remember I traveled with two mayors 3 times to China, and our mayor says, we are proudly have the best city in the world, most livable city in the world. And these people is the people build our city.
You speak with so much passion, but it wasn't always easy when you tried to start your architecture career, was it?
Well, I came here in the early 90s, and that's the really difficult time.
Recession.
This recession we had to have.
Yes. But you go, like Lisa, you gave something up. You had a PhD, you could have gone down a very different path. What made you make that leap forward?
I almost got my PhD, I should say. And then I feel more in passion for the actual work. Because I was a teacher before in China, I thought initially I planned to do a PhD, then study finished and to be a teacher again. But I find that my passion more in the actual work as an architect. So I deviated from doing the research and go to the practice.
Right. Lisa, you get that. You did the same thing. How important is it to follow your passion?
Oh, life's too short to be unhappy. So for me, I'm always focused on things that make me happy. And I feel like everyone should be doing the same where possible, because, you know, the last thing you want to do is wake up every morning and just be like, oh, I don't have to go to work today. And I'm sure a lot of us have been there, but you have the power to do something about it. So I encourage anyone watching to go out and, you know, pursue their dreams, because it's amazing what can happen when you do.
Greg, do you agree? A lot of some people might follow the passion and it doesn't work out.
Well, if you try hard enough, eventually will happen, because I firmly believe what Lisa said. You try hard and persist and you will get there.
Yeah, it's something I absolutely agree with. What makes Melbourne a livable city?
Well, Melbourne have the greenery and the planning and also the people, like Lisa said. And people probably more important than anything else. And then
is that just a Melbourne thing? Is it an Australian thing, or is it really comes down to Melbourne?
I would say Melbourne.
I'd agree.
I've been in Sydney and I have been in Gold Coast, or where you come from, and also Brisbane. But somehow I just feel Melbourne is home.
What about the Chinese influence in Melbourne, in the architecture, in the history? We have a huge Chinese culture here. How does that all play a part?
Architecture influence probably not so much, but the food, Chinese food in Melbourne is the best in the world, outside of China and maybe Hong Kong. So Melbourne is really offer the best food, variety of food.
I've certainly been sampling the Chinese food here in Melbourne while I've been here. Lisa, do you think you would have made it without the support of the community?
No. It's like, I feel like there's something that's really special about Melbourne. Like, we want people, everyone to succeed. And, I think about, say, New York, for example, that's like a cutthroat city. Like, people are stepping upon other people just to get to the top. Whereas I feel like in Melbourne, if you want, someone to introduce you to someone will do that for you. Or if you're looking for a referral to, like, an accountant or a lawyer or someone's going to step in and say, yeah, I know someone really good, I'll introduce you. So I feel like there's that spirit of, like, everyone wanting to win together. And so I really love it. I think the energy is like unlike anywhere in the world.
Well, perfect way to bring in our next guest. Stay right there, because you've heard from Greg and Lisa. Building links between people and countries is the best way of calming tensions and avoiding misunderstanding. And no one knows this better than our next guest. Indeed, who among us can say they've helped prevent global conflict? You see, Professor Charles Chin has a unique role. For the past 30 years, he has been rubbing shoulders with the most powerful people on the planet. And it's been his job to make sure what they say to each other has no room for misinterpretation or insult. This master linguist has been the Mandarin interpreter and translator for presidents, prime ministers, and premiers. Being this close to the inner sanctum of power has given him insights and knowledge of the rarest quality. Professor Chin, welcome.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having me.
When I look at pictures of you, we have you with Kevin Rudd, Tony Abbott, and even President Xi. What's it like being in the room with these people?
When I started out, I was very nervous, and that was very early days when I graduated from university in China in 1980s, and I was doing interpreting for my vice governor, and I had no experience, and my hand was trembling, and my foot and my legs were trembling, and I was performing very badly. But if you have worked for so long, for so many people at different levels in international arena, in courts, in different situations, you get used to it.
And what about when someone makes a joke? Because jokes are a very funny thing. They cannot work when you're telling them in the same language and you're having to interpret a joke into a different language. How hard is that?
Probably that's the hardest part of doing interpreting jokes and also puns. And Western leaders, they always, like to tell jokes, or at least they want to say they are telling a joke, and that's very hard. And also puns, because puns and jokes, they are very regional and very country specific.
Yes.
And quite often it doesn't work. And also sometimes if you explain it, it doesn't work. Luckily, in the jobs I've done, the relationship have been quite good, and the jokes are reasonably easy.
Do you get the blame if they don't work?
Well, we're blaming for...
If there's no laugh, is someone looking at you and going...
Well, we're blaming for everything, for a lot of things, so not only jokes. But puns and jokes are very difficult.
On a serious side, you are in the room when big meetings are happening. What is the relationship with China like now? And because it's been rocky over the last few years, are we on the better path now?
I can clearly tell you that since COVID started, there's not a lot of engagements, interactions between our two countries. But now, since the new government came to office, we have a lot of engagements, a lot of bilateral meetings at ministerial levels and also at Prime Minister, Premier level, the most senior level. So we have a lot of talk, and the relationship has been improving on many fronts, and in many areas improved by a great deal, and I'm very happy to see the results.
Let's talk about your history, because you came to this country with just $60. Tell me how that came about and why you made that decision.
I came to Australia in 1991, and in those days, China was still very strict in foreign exchange control. So we were not allowed to take more than many dollars, in fact. And I got married in China, and we left China in 1990.
But there was a problem with that marriage, wasn't there?
Well, there are many hiccups behind the scene, because firstly, I was working for government, for local provincial government, and my wife was from Australia.
Right.
She was from country Victoria, a Caucasian lady and a foreigner, and marrying a government official. It's something that the Chinese provincial government, they don't deal with this day to day. It's quite different from Australia. So I had to get...
And this is a long time ago.
A long time ago, when China was just opening up, not long ago, China opened up, still quite conservative, and I had to get approval from my deputy commissioner, and got married, and she eventually lost her job, her contract to work for the local university, and I will have to leave.
But to do that, that must be love. I mean, leaving your country, leaving everything you know, coming with nothing, that's a big call.
I think that's life, and that's love, and that's life, and that's where I am now.
Was that the beginning of your opportunity? We're talking about opportunity knocks here. Is that your leap of faith that led you to the success that you've had?
I guess in those days I didn't think I would be doing what I've been doing now. Just Australia is such a wonderful country. It gives me all the opportunities that I can never dream of. Coming here and being a multicultural country, doesn't matter what race, and it gives you all the opportunities. It's in front of you.
And I just have to note, you have your notebook here, and apparently you go everywhere with your notebook.
Well, this is my notebook, this is my Bible, and I have to go everywhere with it, because that's my habit to interpreting, because if a leader is speaking, you don't know how long he's going to speak. He may say only a few words, and he may say 500 words or 1,000 words, and you have to write it down. I can't trust my memory. I can't remember 1,000 words without any words missing when I'm doing the interpreting. So that's why when I go everywhere with my notebook.
Lisa, I guess your version would be your phone, which we had to rip out of your hands. Otherwise, you would have had it in this studio sitting with you the whole time.
I feel like it's a part of me, so I'm not going to lie. I feel nervous that it's not in my hands, but yeah, I totally get it. It's just, I think that's that habit. It's almost like a bit of a comfort mechanism.
What was the culture shock when you first came here? Were there things you found very difficult about the Australian culture?
I guess when I came, the cultural shock was extreme, because there are so many different things that I've never imagined. Firstly, I think to start with the temperature, because summer, well, you wouldn't expect it so hot. Secondly, in those days when I first came, the TV channels aren't like those days. These days there are so many different channels. And in my days when I first came, there were only 5 channels.
Yes.
And almost all channels, they had nothing to broadcast except cricket. I've never heard of such a word, never seen a sport like this. And I just couldn't believe how different and how difficult, and I couldn't understand it. Still don't understand. After so many years.
Can we just be clear to the people watching this at home that it's very different now? We have a lot of television, a lot of streaming services. So anyone who wants to come here from China, it won't be as bad, surely.
Now, the situation in Australia is so different. I can tell you that the cultural shock when I first came was very drastic and very, very extreme. But 3 years later, I went back to China and had reverse cultural shock.
You were begging for the cricket. You were saying, I'll even watch cricket.
Well, I had interactions with some overseas Chinese, so my language and my cocooning of my life in Australia without many interactions with Chinese in China prevented me from knowing what's happening in China. So 3 years later, went back to China, I think, they speak Chinese with an accent. And their food, oh God, it's very salty. And so it gave me a reverse cultural shock. But now Australia is so different. Nowadays, Australia and China are intertwined and interconnected into a very thick woven fabric of the whole world. So you can see now it's two different worlds from 1990s till now.
Let's talk the big picture. This is beyond 2030. We're talking about our relationships, Australia, China, beyond 2030. What do you think the big picture is, Lisa?
Well, I hope that, relationships improve. I really hope that there's so much opportunity for anyone who wants to come here, and, people from China can come here, people from Australia can go to China, and we're all doing amazing things. I mean, I'm personally passionate about technology, so I feel like there's a huge opportunity for Australia and Melbourne in particular to be one of the tech capitals of the world. So that's what I'm hoping for by 2030.
Yes. Professor Charles is writing in his trusty notebook. What are you writing? What's the big picture?
I think for 2030, we can all have a go at what we think, because in 2030, no one's going to check this program. It's very dangerous.
You never know.
It's very dangerous to ask, what's going to be like tomorrow. I think for 2030, I can see both Australia in technology, people are very innovative, entrepreneurial, and also is China. And we'll be working together much closer. And China is a very large economy. They would need Australia in many areas, not only natural resources, iron ore, and also many other natural resources, but also human talents from Australia. Australia is a very clever country. We'll be working together in that area. And education is an area that we'll be working even closer. So in 2030, I can see that we're heading the right track. Both countries are becoming wealthier and cleverer, and hopefully we'll be living to see all the good results.
That was a lot you wrote on your notepad then. Craig, what do you think? What's the big picture?
I think people's understanding between each other will get much more. And talking about 30 years ago when we came here, we know very little between the two countries, and now we know a lot. And in the future, another 5-10 years, I think people will know each other even better. And the better understanding will bring more fruition and bring the culture exchange and the service exchange and also goods exchange. And I think I'm always positive. For architects, you have to be.
Yes.
And you always believe something is going to happen positively. So I'm very positive person.
Yes, you are. You're positive and you're passionate, as all three of you are. Thank you very much for taking part. Your insights have been fantastic. We've really learnt a lot today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of China Australia Beyond 2030. We'll be back with another episode soon.